Hi, this is Kevin from Christ Connection Ministry, and I just wanted to come to you today with a quick encouragement thought. It's just some fun I've been thinking about that I thought it would either be an encouragement, a thought, or something for you. So I was thinking about the show that my daughter and I have watched a few. Marie Kondo, I think is how you say her name, is Tidying Up on Netflix, and it's about this little lady who, I probably shouldn't say much about little because I'm a little guy here, but this little lady comes into people's house with a big smile on her face and helps them organize their life. And so it's fun, a little fun show there. Now, I realize she's not a Christian, and my daughter actually makes me fast forward through the part where she kneels on the floor and, kind of like prays, thanking the house for, so it's not a Christian show. But she has this idea that when she has people go through their stuff, she picks up each item and encourages them to tell whether it sparks joy. That's the phrase, sparks joy in their heart. And this has gotten me thinking about our possessions and sparking joy and what the Bible would teach us and how we can just expand on that thought to bring some powerful things, I think, into our lives. So the place to start with this is to ask us what Jesus teaches us about our possessions. Now, I'm not going to do a full study on the subject, but let me just challenge the idea that just because it says, something sparks joy inside of us, that we need to keep it. Well, Jesus tells the rich young ruler that he should sell all he has and give to the poor and come follow him. So he's saying to that guy who probably had some things that he owned that sparked joy to get rid of them. So it wasn't about the possessions. And we realize he gives the underlying thing there is that the possessions had become a god for him. Possessions became too important to him. Elsewhere, Jesus says that one's life does not consist of the abundance of possessions. So again, the possessions can only go so far. I think the great idea I've been I started listening through Randy Alcorn's book entitled Happiness. Now, it's 500 pages and I'm 150 pages through, so I can't say everything about it, but I like the idea. It's basically a Bible study on the subject of happiness. And he talks about the idea of a moon in relationship to the sun. Now, the moon gives off a certain brightness. And if the moon could talk and the moon could say, wow, look at me, I'm so amazing because I give off this brightness, it's missed the point because it's really just reflecting the brightness that the sun is bringing to it. And the same is true of our possessions. So our possessions can bring us a certain amount of happiness, a certain amount of joy. And that's not a bad thing. Yeah, if you do the whole study, well, at least the 150 pages that I did is with Randy Alcorn, happiness and joy is something that God delights. He gives good gifts to his children. There's a lot of things he gives for our enjoyment, and that's okay, and that's good. And so there's just the blanket statement that just because something gives you joy, you got to get rid of it. It's a matter of, is it just a reflection? Is it become too high of importance? Has it become a God? Is it, or as Randy would say, is it first or second place? God is our first place of joy and happiness. And has it become a second place item? It can be a second place item that brings us joy as we look towards God. And that is a good way to think about our possessions. So maybe a way of looking at it then is, does these items fill a couple of categories? First of all, is it gotten too high in my heart that it needs to be brought down to the place where, and then Jesus, if it gets too high, then you just get rid of it. And that's true of anything that becomes, or you don't get rid of it and you just put it back in its proper place. And that's question number one. Is it in its proper place in my life? Second, is it fulfilling the purpose that it's supposed to? And third, then does it spark joy? And, that's where she probably is right. There's a lot of things in our life that we keep not for the right purposes, just because there's some reason in the past that no longer fulfills its purpose. And now it doesn't, like that old t-shirt that you just keep around for no apparent reason. It's okay to let that go. And just keep the things that do spark that joy inside of you. So I thought just be some fun. Let's look at a few items. Item number 1 and 2, or we're going to call them one together. I got this marker here. How this marker does not spark joy for me, I don't know if ever will, but it's useful. It actually has a very spiritual purpose. I mark my Bible tally when I'm keeping track of reading through the Bible in the year, so I use this pen right here. Now this kind of pen, this is with the 4-clicker, because I'm a nerd, that sparks joy for me. So this one I can keep and this one I can't. No, I think we can be a little more thinking than that, and we'll keep them both for our purposes today. All right, next up we have Caspian Frodo. He's my dog. and Caspian, he does spark joy for me. And so, but we've all met people who their dogs became too important. Caspian's not that for me, but some dogs can become too important, so then they'd have to be brought down to the right spot. But God gives us good things for our enjoyment, and that includes Caspian Frodo. Sparks joy. The final thing I got here is a fidget spinner. Now, a fidget spinner has no real redeeming value other than I like spinning these things. And so, you know, maybe someday God will say, this needs to go. But for the time being, it sparks joy. So I think I'm going to keep this fidget spinner. Maybe a couple more fidget spinners, because I kind of like them. Now, I say, oh, this may be corny. This may be like, what the world? But I say that because sometimes we get kind of weird about stuff, whether it has gained too much of an importance in our lives. I realize that sometimes. I was going through some books yesterday and some old sentimental things, and I was like, I need to let this go so I have space for the things that God has for me in the future. And so I'm letting those things go. And then there's other things that we like, oh, you know, we get so serious, not so spiritual. And God, spiritual means sometimes God gives us good things for our enjoyment. And so it sparks joy, and that's a good thing. I hope that's an encouragement to you today. If you can handle the weirdness today, I'm having some fun. Come on over to enjoyingprayer.org, or if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe so you don't miss any more weirdness, because Caspian Frodo probably coming back. But before you go, let me encourage you to do one of two things. One, maybe there's something you just need to get rid of. God puts that on your heart while I was doing my fidget spinner. You get rid of that, or sell that, whatever, give it to the poor with it. Or maybe there's something that you just kind of need to thank God for. Take 30 seconds and thank Him for this fidget spinner. So I hope that's an encouragement to you today. God bless you, and have a great day.